So this is episode 147 of the BTS Creative Academy podcast with me, your host, Martin Colton. I'm excited today to introduce to you Heather Parody. Heather has been referred to as a fractional COO to Unconventional Visionaries. Host to the Unconventional Leaders podcast, which I believe has now exceeded over 1 million downloads. She's a social media change maker. She has a powerful platform where she echoes the voices of creatives and change makers. So Heather, thank you for joining me. Wonderful to have you here. Wonderful to meet you. How are you?
It's so nice meeting you. I love your accent, and I love this thing we're doing on the internet because it's so interesting. I met you 30 seconds ago, and now we're live on the internet, and we know nothing about each other, and we're just getting. It's so cool if you really think about what we're doing. It's wild.
We're living in a crazy age, and I like to think that we're blessed. That there's all this crazy stuff going on in the world. But yet we can do this. We can talk across the pond, and we can reach out to each other. We can learn things from each other, hopefully.
And let me real quick mention the 1 million downloads. That was another show I hosted right before this one, so I want to make sure I'm super clear on it. We haven't hit 1 million yet. We will.
Okay.
But that was the show I did right before this one that hit it.
So that was the previous show. What was the previous one?
Oh boy, do I have to confess it to
you? You tell me what you want to tell me.
Here we go. It was called NFTs for Newbies.
Ooh.
And it was an educational podcast hosted by a friend and I. We did it for 8 months, 1 million downloads. It was like a thing that was in and out, and it was like hot, and then it wasn't. So, but it was a lot of fun. We learned a ton.
But you grabbed a bit of attention from it, and like you say, you learned something. You discovered something.
Learned a lot.
What was a big takeaway from that, from having a podcast blow up?
Having a podcast blow up. It's interesting. So I've been a content creator for several years, and I've had things that have done well, and I've had things that have completely flopped. And I think the takeaway for me is that it's possible, and it's probably going to happen in the way you weren't planning. So I'm a planner. I like to organize things and be consistent and have your content calendars, do all the things they tell you to do. And I think that works compounded over time, but sometimes you get these spurts, like these sparks. And whenever that happens, it's really important that you run with it and you pay attention, because they don't happen all the time. And it's not because you suck and your content's not good. It's just, it's rare. So if you see that with, putting out reels and stuff like that, you can't predict which ones are going to pop and which one's going to work. That's where the consistency comes in. It's important just to put out, because every once in a while something pops and it's awesome. It gets sometimes discouraging when you can't reverse engineer it and figure out what you did that made that work. But I think if the optimistic way of looking at it is saying like, hey, damn, this is possible.
Yeah. And your social media content at the moment is where I discovered you. I remember, so it was about a year ago, not quite a year ago, about 9 months ago, I started with all of this, putting myself there out into the world.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Started with the podcast about 9 months ago. And I remember I was at a barbecue with my brother and telling him what my plans were, what my ideas were. And he said, you want to check out this Heather Parody, what she does? It sounds like I'm following her, and I get a little bit of inspiration from her, and her content's great. Have a look. And the first piece of content that I saw of yours, I was like, wow, yeah, that is something that I want to be aspiring to. I want to be achieving.
What about it? Was it the content or was it the style? What was it?
It was the content. It was the message that you were putting across. That you echo the voices of, like I tried to say in the intro there. You echo the voices of change makers. You raise the voices of people that have achieved something and done something, and you put it across in a way that is super simple to understand and get, and it resonates.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
Yeah, I can tell, and I can tell that you're passionate about what you do, aren't you?
Yeah. It's interesting having like a nudge to do something that doesn't necessarily make sense on paper. You know what I mean? So I've really started to fall in love over the past few years with creatives. I know I would have never identified as that prior or thought much about being a creative until the past couple of years. And really, it was through that show that I hosted that went really well. And then it kind of burned to the ground. And I was really just at a point where I was like, what do I love? What do I really want to do? And I love making things, you know? And the more I've gotten into trying to develop my own creativity, the more fascinated I've become with other creative people. I'm like, damn, this is actually some deep stuff. Like, this is actually, I mean, I was just on a call a minute ago with a comedy show that I'm involved in, and you look at comedians, you might be like, oh, they're just goofing off their whole lives and having fun and smoking weed, whatever. The really serious creatives, man, that's not the case. They are working so hard and they're so dedicated to their craft, and it's this amazing mixture between like woo and muse and spirit and soul mixed with like just a tenacity to put yourself out there over and over again and get bruised and bruised and bruised and bruised. And most people don't go into that for the money aspect and building some big ass business. They're there to express something, and it's just so neat. And so you say passionate, yeah, I think I'm just so curious about this world. It's like an alternative to me. Like there's this path, the conventional path. Folks are like, here's your options. And then to think and dare to think, well, maybe there's something else. And maybe I'm just the person to break all the norms in my family or in my generation and do something completely outside of the box. And that's just captured my attention over the past couple of years. And it sounds sexy and cool, but to full transparency, I say all the time, I wish I was like a normal human, because there seems so many people who are just kind of happy going to work and clocking out and coming home and drinking a beer and watching TV. Like, I can't do that. And I don't know if I need therapy or what, but I'm so captured by the stuff that we do that I want to spend my free time. Like, somebody asked me yesterday, like, when do you take off? And I'm like, what do you mean take off? What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm making stuff and I'm constantly thinking about it.
And I got
yeah.
that from you as well. Like I said I reached out to you by email and I was like, what you do just resonates with me so much. I could tell you were very similar to me. I'm the same. I can't. I've been doing this project for 9 months. This
What's
thing,
140 episodes or something? That's
104,
impressive.
yeah, 147. But I don't stop. Like I'm living this, and I've got family. I've got 2 young children,
Yep.
and that I've got to support, and so it is hard. You've got to do them things in life as well. But I'm throwing myself into this so much that I've kind of found myself. I'm not watching TV anymore when I'm in a creative project. I'm not. I'm not taking those pauses because I enjoy it and I love it so much. And I've thrown myself into it. But I think at the same time, it is important that we do still do life.
Yeah, man, that's what I've been really wrestling with. Like yesterday, so I work here. My business is right here. I create right here. I spend my life in this office, and I go to acting class every week. Usually it's online, but once a month I drive 2.5 hours to go to class, be in person, and drive back. And yesterday I had so much client work. I needed to edit a reel. There's so much there. And I just was like, do you really need to go jump in the car and drive 5 hours, be in class for 2 hours, get home late, get your schedule thrown off? Every time I do that, I don't regret it because it's like getting on the road and unplugging. I had so many ideas. I felt like this new charge getting home last night, you know, and I don't do that enough. And it's interesting because when you study creatives, they talk about, you know, flow is deep, deep focus and then letting go and getting your mind completely off of it. And I'm not as good at that because I'm 37. I work hard. I don't have time to screw around. So that letting go part is really hard for me because I'm like, okay, I have 3 hours. Like
Yeah.
for real, you know what I mean? But that's where all the magic is. That's the
That's right.
irony of it all.
And that's exactly what I was kind of surprised to find that within doing this podcasting. I'm not even sure what we call this yet. Having conversations is what we're doing.
Content creating. We're creating
co-
content.
we're creating content, and yeah, within that, when I'm in that state of flow, I'm at my best when I let go. In fact, I'll take you back to the very beginning of this right now, what we're doing here. I tried something a little bit different that I haven't done before, which I think is important,
Okay.
but it threw my game completely off. I had a little prepared script. I had a little bit, and I don't do that. I do all the research on all the ones I've done previous to this. I do all the research beforehand, and I know what I want to say, and then I let go, and I just do it. And I don't know why I did that, to be honest, now after I did it, because I could hear having made a change, and I reflect back on 5 minutes ago, I'm like, I can hear the nerves in my voice doing not by not releasing.
You mean reading the script?
By
Is that what you're
reading,
talking about?
yeah, reading the script at the beginning, doing the little intro.
The intro. So this is what's interesting. I have a lot of thoughts about that. There's this interesting thing with structure and freedom with creativity where it's like a yes and, because you said within the structure you could kind of like, you know, you have like a grounding, a safety, and then within that you play. So like with acting, you know, it's so interesting when they talk about, you know, you don't memorize lines. If you're really good actors, don't memorize lines, right? They really understand what's trying to be said, but the lines add the perimeters to be able to play within. And so, not to get deep, weird, and woo too fast, but here we go. Your scripts, I would argue, can make you more creative if you figure out a way to allow them to be a perimeter around you. Because I'm historically really bad with intros. Like I have to pre-record or record my intros after because I've done over 1,000 interviews now between all my shows. I've done so many of these conversations. I still get nervous trying to introduce Martin, like, because I don't want to screw up your name. I don't want to say something stupid. So maybe it's the lazy way.
That was exactly what my fear was. I was like, I've got Heather Parody here, someone that I've looked up to, someone that I've been following. I'm getting an opportunity to sit down with her and have this conversation, and I've got to get this right. So let's add this structure in at the beginning, and yeah, it threw me. It took me off on a different course, and I was like, no, I prefer it when I'm in that state of flow, and I just submit to all the research that I've done previous, that it's all there.
It's all
I
there.
know it. I know it all.
Yeah.
And by trusting that, there seems to be something special happens when we trust it.
I really appreciate your vulnerability with that. I think that's a very refreshing way to host your show, is the immediacy of like being very present with what just happened 5 minutes ago and the willingness to talk about it. That's pretty badass, dude. So if that's your vibe, like I hands down believe this is going to go somewhere really special.
I appreciate that as well. And I do think that, that's where we're all at our best, is when we're vulnerable and when
100%.
we share truth. Yeah, that's yeah, and like I say, special things are happening from that. And I wasn't always like this. I was an actor. I am an actor.
Really? So you know what I'm talking about.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. And I would say I'm coming away, because I'm finding so much enjoyment within this. I'm coming away from the acting a little bit now. But all the skills that I learned from acting, from improv, is what's driving me forward with this, where I'm
That's so cool.
you know, where I know how to be on a stage, I know how to do all the work in advance, and then I know how to let go and just be,
How
and
many
just
years were you an
be
actor?
20 years.
Oh my God. I've been
Yes.
doing it for 5. And I feel like I'm a vet.
Yeah, 20,
That's
20,
incredible.
20 years. And it was I love acting. I still do, and I will still have opportunities. I did a short independent film a few months back, and yeah, got an agent, and yeah, still do
What do you
self
love
tapes.
about it?
Sorry,
What do you love about it?
that state of flow. That
Mhm.
state of flow. I think with acting, I found love at quite a young age, like 16, and I found myself within it. But I never, because I found it at a young age, I never asked myself, why am I doing this? What
Interesting.
what is the purpose of this other than I enjoy it? Um, and I think that's one of the reasons it didn't work for me. Why I was hitting my head against the brick wall and not progressing. I think that was because I didn't question and ask why.
Damn.
What is it that I enjoy about this? And when I'm doing this, I know exactly why I'm doing this. I
Mm.
know the reasoning behind this that I
Mm.
discovered. And so that gives me a different type of purpose and a different type of enjoyment. And what about yourself?
I was
What do
well.
you?
I was asking myself this yesterday
Mhm,
because I go to this. I mean, like I'm doing this for a few years now. It's not on paper makes sense at all why I would invest in this. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Um, Plus, I started later in life. So yesterday, and I had a phone call from someone, and they said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing more behind the scenes stuff on some films, like for my more producer role? Because I'm really great at like kind of organizational. I mean, I'm a fractional COO. I do operational stuff. I am the gal like step on the gas. If you have a project, let's go. I got a spreadsheet already made. You know what I
mhm,
mean? So she was like, would you be interested in like some producer positions? She goes, are you really attached to acting? And I really had to think about that. I'm like, I think the answer is I want to be a part of storytelling and productions no matter what. Like,
mhm,
I love being on set. I love being around creatives. I love this weird thing that we do. Even content creators. I mean, like what we're doing here. I love it. But then I started thinking, what is it about acting I like? And I think this is a really weird answer and not well thought out because I just thought about it yesterday. But when I'm in a room with you and we're both looking each other in the eyes and we're doing some kind of weird dialogue thing and there's trying to find some energy between us when I don't know you,
mhm,
and these aren't really Heather Parody's words, these are somebody else's words. There's a weird energetic thing that happens there where you have to be very comfortable to let go of something, some kind of like
mhm,
weird ego thing. And I don't know if I've ever experienced that other than acting in person with someone else. And I'm saying that because I started around the pandemic and I've been doing a lot of self taping. It's just all so much different.
mhm,
And I was a therapist for a little while, and I do these interviews and I connect with people on a very vulnerable level, but I've never really experienced the level of vulnerability when you're not yourself, you're someone else. It's a different game. And I think I'm just really amazed by that process.
mm. See, I didn't find it. I don't find acting too vulnerable because I get to be someone else. Because I get to. I actually didn't really have a lot of confidence in all the time that I was doing it, and I used to be like, I like the script, I
Yeah.
like the direction, being told exactly what to do by someone. I like to be, yeah, put into a place where I know how it's going to work out, is what I used to enjoy. Um, Whereas again, like I say now, I'm appreciating that free flow of ideas. But yeah, I used to really love that. I used to really love, oh, I'm a different character. And I particularly liked character work to not
Right.
be myself so I could be more confident.
See, I feel like I'm opposite, and I don't know where this comes
Mm.
from. I'm super comfortable being vulnerable as myself. There's a weird vulnerability pretending to be someone, and I don't know what it is. Like I've gotten on, I mean, I can stand on stage and give a talk. I mean, I'll be nervous, but I'm fine doing it. I can talk in this microphone. I can do whatever those real things on Instagram as Heather. But you put me on a stage in front of 5 people and say you're Margaret and you're grocery shopping, I will just start. It's this weird thing, and I don't know, man. I'm just curious by
So,
it.
so you say you're new to acting. This is only 5 years you've been
5
doing it.
years, yeah.
So, when you were young, let's go back to when you were young. Was there any sort of creativeness there? Did you play? Did you act? What did
Yeah,
that look like when you were young?
I put on productions all the time. Now, those productions changed a lot. There was always a stage. I think at the end of the day, I'm a communicator. There were some days that I had a stage and I was giving a presidential speech, and my sister was my campaign manager. Other days, I'm a pastor at a church and I'm giving a sermon, and my sister better give me some offering. You know, the next day we're doing like some death scene of a movie. Like there's always some platform, and I'm always was like the main character in it, whether it was pastor, actor, whatever. I think at the end of the day, communication is what I'm so fascinated with.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I grew up saying, hey, I want to be an actress or anything. This is something that I've just been interested in because I'm very drawn to weird creative expression that makes no logical sense.
So, was you say you were comfortable getting up on a stage when you was younger? You was
Mm-hmm.
comfortable being in front of people?
I love it. More than
Yeah.
comfortable. That doesn't mean I don't get nervous. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just had a talk a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, had to do some deep breathing and really center myself and focus. But I love it.
Why do you think that was?
That I got nervous
No, that you was comfortable and that you loved it.
because this is what I was made to do.
So where does the nerves come from then?
Ego, worrying about how if you like me or not.
Mm-hmm.
So really getting comfortable with this idea that Martin may not like me. And there's nothing I can do about it. So there's this thing I do. Have you ever heard of the moth?
No, go on.
Okay. So it's this storytelling thing that I started doing last year. You go down to Atlanta and it's about 400 people there, and you tell a 5-minute story. It's like stand up, but for storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been practicing that. And one of my favorite parts of that experience is not telling the story, but standing on the stage and feeling petrified in that sensation and
Mm-hmm.
learning how to calm my nerves through it. I'm really drawn to for some reason. And I think it's just getting comfortable with judgment because there's so much more there. It has nothing to do with the story. It has nothing to do with anything. It has to do with, am I okay with not being loved and accepted?
And that's hard, isn't it? That's difficult.
Of course. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the challenge. And then that getting through the nerves. I've also found, now that I'm at a place in my life where I'm reflecting back on stuff, I also find that if and once the nerves completely go, then I also lose something.
Oh, tell me more. What do you mean?
That if I get too comfortable in a place, that if
Mm,
I'm just so when I started doing this podcast and I started with my friends and my family and my immediate circle, I started bringing them in.
uh-huh.
That was very comfortable.
Right.
I have a small community theatre which I run, and I'm doing them from there, which is like my second home. Comfortable. But if I'd have kept it to that, I think I would have got bored.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think I would have got lost interests. Whereas pushing it to the next circle and the outer circles and people I don't know
Mm,
is bringing the nerves back in.
mm-hmm.
You know, reaching out to someone like you that's someone, like I said, aspire to be like, someone that look up to what they're doing, reaching out to those people. And I've reached out to some other people that I look up to and aspire to. And by doing that, the nerves come back.
Yeah.
And I think the nerves give you some kind of drive, don't they?
Are you into cardio? Do you do cardio?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this today on the little stair stepper thing, which is the devil.
I hate that one. I just don't do it.
I'm a runner.
You're talking about the one where you're just continuously walking up the steps. Yeah.
Yeah. So I run. I that's my favorite thing to do. But I've been trying to do the stair stepper just because it takes my heart rate to another level. But I was noticing in myself how I'm just like trying to always like kind of keep the pace and keep my heart rate down. And I've been trying to push myself more to get my heart rate up and, stay in that space a little bit longer each time. And I think that's what you're alluding to here. It's like, how can I not maintain at this tempo that never really pushes my health, right? And it's interesting because even when stuff's working, like, are you still pushing? Because like right now, these chair reels, I've been thinking a lot about that. I started in July. So we're coming up, 10 months on doing this one particular form of content. And everybody's like, oh, it's great, blah, blah, blah. And it is, and it's worked and I like it. And it's a cool expression, but it's like, I'm so comfortable with it now. When am I going to switch things up?
Tell me more about the chair reels. Is that the quick bites of inspiration where you review a creative or a leader?
Yeah. So the whole concept of it is bridging like a pop culture topic with some kind of principle that I learned from a book. So that's the essence of what that is. And they've worked and they've been really cool and fun to produce, but I've been getting itchy lately and kind of like what you were saying. All right, I'm at a comfortable place. I need to get something, get my heart rate up a little bit more.
And what are you doing to
I don't know. Do you have any ideas?
Oh, what about the podcast as well? Your podcast. How regularly do you put episodes out with your podcast?
Right now I'm doing one a week. That's just the tempo that I have in this season of my life. I mean, I've tested so many different things. There was one point I was doing 7 days a week. There was one time I was doing it, I think 3 has always been my kind of tempo. Recently, I've cut down to 1 a week because I've been doing more long form and wanting to be more intentional with it and focus on reels. I spend 20 plus hours a week just on short form content, so
it takes time putting this stuff together, doesn't it?
A lot.
It takes time.
A lot of time,
a lot of work, a lot of effort. And are you at a place, this is quite a personal question, you don't have to answer, are you at a place where you're able to monetize from it yet?
I could. I don't.
Why is that?
Couple of reasons. One, okay, there's like an internal reason and an external reason. The internal reason is I genuinely want to build a stronger community and kind of the whole Gary Vee jab, 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 right hook situation with that. And on the external, I just had a meeting with a lawyer yesterday. I hired them for like just an hour consult because I was like, what does it look like since I'm using so much content from other people?
Yes, yeah.
Copyright laws. I just want to. No one's ever said anything to me about it. I just want to make sure that I'm protected and I'm doing the right things. And
what I worry, I've got a friend that makes these long form reviews, an hour to, and he's using so many film clips. I worry for him that at some point YouTube's going to say, no, all that work, all that effort has got to go.
Right. So, not legal advice. I'm just saying, one of the points in my favor is I don't monetize my content. So like even on Instagram, they give you the option where you can monetize your reels. And I did that over a year ago before I was doing these chair reels. And, it wasn't a ton of money. It was a few $100 extra a month, which was cool. I have a bigger reach now. So I know I could, bring in a little bit of money, but it's not worth it to me from a legality perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen eventually. I'll monetize from it. But right now, from a branding perspective, the opportunities that come my way from putting out free content with no expectations, crazy. I mean, I don't ever say what I do except for what's in my bio, but people will say like, I've had so many emails where they'll literally say this. They'll go, I don't know what you do, but I want to work with you. And I'll get clients just because people connect with me from my personality. They're like, hey, I vibe with you. How can you help me? And they explore what I do. So, I mean, I indirectly monetize. It's just not, I don't have like a product right now.
Yes, yeah.
No.
Because we've got to, as these content creators, putting all these hours of working, like I said at the beginning of our conversation, we've got lives going on and we've got to look after ourselves financially. So someone as yourself that's putting so much content out there and so much work into this, how do you look after yourself then?
You mean as far as like a business?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have the Fractional COO offer. So right now I have about 11 clients that I work with. I have 2 VAs and we run all their back end stuff from their digital products. We build out courses, memberships, funnels, all service based. We have a pretty tight machine, processes in place where we use very similar platforms per client. So we've gotten pretty efficient with the way that we roll things. But I ironically help people launch and sell their digital products. So I understand that world pretty stinking well. So when it comes time for me, I'll be well equipped for that. But right now I'm putting in the reps. So that's where all my income comes in. It does pretty good. I'm happy with it. I am getting to a point where running a service-based business, it's a lot of hours and it's not scalable. So I'm at a point now where, you just raise your prices. And eventually you're like, okay, do I just want to work with like 2 or 3 people and have like a really, really premium product? Or do I want to go into more of a membership model or some kind of product or system that I sell? And that's where I'm at right now, really trying to make a decision really for this fall. I've kind of set that deadline to decide how I'm going to steer the ship from now, because the way our business is currently, it's good, but I've hit a cap of what I'm able to do. So
What does it look like going forward for you then with the business? What are the hopes and dreams?
I think the ideal situation is I want to eventually get paid to create. That is my benchmark. I would love to be at that point where I'm not trading time for dollars and I can be more creative. I've been trying to reconcile with the gift that I have, though, with execution. Can say that confidently. I can execute really, really well. And I've noticed that people don't have that gift all the time. So people hire me really to borrow my execution because that's what I do. So I've been trying to reconcile, like, okay, God, why did you give me a gift to execute and to be very organized and help? Kind of my whole premise is I take your idea across the finish line. Like, we finish stuff. Why did you give me that gift, but also a bent towards kind of more creative expression? And the only way that I've kind of been able to wrestle with that lately is moving more into a spot where I'm helping creative projects across the finish line and more creative clients. Like right now, we have some professional creative clients, but a lot of them are in industries that are more kind of corporate-y or ones that I'm not super passionate about. So I'd love to kind of switch the clientele a little bit more towards more the arts.
And is this where the producing comes in? Because you mentioned earlier you was looking at the producing.
That's what they tell me. That's, and it's crossed my mind. I think if a camera is involved, I'm really interested, and I don't know why. I love media so much. Media, what we're doing here, this thing, changed my life. I listened to a podcast 10 years ago, however long ago, and I had never thought about my own role in my life, my own responsibility, the autonomy. I didn't grow up with that mindset, that personal development, like all of that. It was brand new to me. And if that guy who hosted that podcast,
Do you remember which podcast it
well,
was?
of course, yeah, Lewis Howes School of Greatness. I go to his conference every year. That show kind of brought into my awareness, oh wow, you can change your life, and I did. So if I can help other people do this kind of stuff and be involved in this kind of stuff, yeah, sign me up.
Isn't it amazing the power that listening into these conversations can have? Because I know I'm listening to your story there about how it changed your life, and it was exactly the same for me.
Same show?
Not the same show, not the same show. For me, it was Daily Stoic, Ryan Holiday.
Oh yeah.
You know that one. Also listened to a lot of Rick Rubin podcasts as well.
Oh man,
The two of
so good.
those, the two of those combined, just completely opened
So
things up
good.
for me. And it started off as a place of transformation, listening to podcasts, but now it's gone to a place of enjoyment. I tend to choose to tap into a podcast if I'm at the gym,
Yeah,
and
me
I'll
too.
enjoy that, being at the gym on the treadmill, on the bike or something, and I'll put the podcast up, the Unconventional Leaders. I'll pop that up, listen to that, and I'll get through that half an hour of being on the treadmill so much
I
quicker,
know.
and I feel like I've not just worked out my body, but I've worked on my mind as well.
It's
And
addictive. It's addictive. Yeah.
yeah, and I really appreciate it when I've had people message me that have listened into these conversations and said that they've got something from it. It's
It's
like, yeah,
unreal. I forget people are watching. I don't know about you, but like people are like, oh yeah, I've seen you on this or whatever. I'm like, I forget people are consuming stuff because I'm so involved in the making of it and the putting it out there that I probably should be better about it from a measuring perspective. But it's always just kind of shocking to me, like, oh yeah, people hear what I'm saying.
yeah. I guess every now and then I'll dip into the analytics or the metrics, but I feel like what I'm doing is going in the right direction.
Yes.
So I don't want to be driven
Right.
by the analytics at this point, because
Yeah.
it's still early days for what I'm trying to achieve here.
And that's why, back to the are you monetizing your content? Eventually I'll need to do that because I want to do this with my life and I'll need to make that transition. It's so nice right now not needing things to be something that they can be what I want them to be. I really love that right now. Like my work is so taxing. There's so much involved in it. There's a lot of pressure there, and I love it. But it's so nice to create from a place of like I genuinely want to make this real and say this thing, and I don't give a rat's ass. I mean, I do, but like it doesn't. There's not an attachment to it, so there will be
There's
a
a
sense of mourning. I think when that happens, that transition.
there's a joy within the freedom, isn't there?
Yeah, it's nice.
And
Yeah,
and again, that's what I've discovered within this. I've discovered this freedom to say what I'm thinking in the moment.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
a really wonderful place to be.
totally.
I want to go back to your acting. I want to find out more about that. Because you're saying you weren't a creative when you were younger, but you enjoyed getting up in front of people. So where did that come in? Was that a podcast? Did a podcast say to do acting, and so you gave it a try?
No, I was watching The Walking Dead. Was a late bloomer, The Walking Dead. They were already in season like 6 or 7. I don't know.
Was Rick still in it?
Oh, I'm about to cuss you. I'm about to. That's my favorite show. I was watching it. I watch it. I can't even tell you how many times through. It's my favorite. Anyway, sitting there first time through it, my husband was sitting on the couch and he goes, I said this. I go, because I'm always researching things. I'm like, oh, this is filmed in Georgia. And I go, I'm going to get on this show. And I just kind of like laughed at it. And he goes like this. So I got mad. And I'm like, you don't think I can get on this show? And I ended up researching. I found like who does the casting, how they do the zombie thing, blah, 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 blah. It wasn't 3 months later, I'm on the set as a zombie. And it was my first time on a movie set, or not a movie set, but a production set. And funny story, blah, ha, ha, I was a zombie, whatever.
Nice.
I ended up doing it several times, by the way.
And this is your first performance is as a
Totally.
zombie?
Yeah. I did it 9 times, I think. But I was in love with this world I just walked into. I was like, I just walked into another world. And this world is so real. And I was just captured by it. The cameras, the lights, the hundreds of people there. When they said, I mean, there was one scene, it was like 3 a.m. and I don't want to give any spoiler alerts, but something was burning down to the ground and Daryl's like running through and he's like, go. And they're all like slashing people. And I'm standing there and I'm like, oh my God. Like I feel like this was really happening. It was so cool. And from there, I was like, you know what? I really want to be on sets more. I love this. I love this escape. So I Googled an acting class and I lived 2.5 hours away from it. And I felt embarrassed because here I am. At that time, I was 32, 33. I'm like, I'm a mom. I got a business. I'm too mature for this stuff. Like I can't be wasting my time going and playing. But I sure hell did, man. And I've done small things. I've done a couple short films. I've been in a series. I've been in a couple commercials. Nothing huge, nothing big. But I just really love being a part of it.
Where did that voice come from that said you can't do that? That you shouldn't do that because you're a mum?
I think I struggle a lot, and I struggle with this quite a bit just in general, of feeling like it's too late for me. There's a lot of, and I don't know if you experience this as a man, I don't know. But as like a woman who's approaching 40, of feeling like nobody wants an older woman involved in things. A mom, somebody who's lame who goes to bed at 8:30. You know what I mean? Like it just seems like some young 20-year-old female would be more, could be more successful at certain things involved in entertainment or storytelling and stuff than some middle-aged woman, which I'm like putting a lot of labels on myself right now. I'm just doing it to be honest. Yeah, I have to fight that narrative a lot. Of not discounting myself too soon. And then also too thinking, you think about traction, somebody like you who's been doing it since they were 16 years old, you have, years of experience. And so trying to catch up later on in life, you're like, does this even make sense on paper? Yeah, I deal with that.
Yeah. It's, it's scary to jump into new things, isn't it, as well? Can be daunting.
Yeah, but like you said earlier, like when are you pushing yourself? You know what I mean?
So when did you decide to start with the acting classes then?
Right after I got on the Walking Dead set, I immediately started doing that.
He was like, I know, I need to learn more. I need to discover more.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And what's the acting class that you go to?
Words in Motion Acting Studio out in Atlanta. So the lady I found, back to content, I'm looking up acting classes. This woman has her own show, kind of like what you're doing right here. She does it for actors. And I didn't care so much about her acting teaching as I did. I was like, if you're a content creator, you're going to get me. Because I was creating content at the time. So I really respected that. So I liked her show. I liked how kind of passionate she was. And so I signed up for her class.
Have they got like a certain sort of message or motto or a philosophy that they teach to?
She's very big into being gritty and she's very, very passionate. I wouldn't say there's like a slogan or anything like that, but her whole thing is this what you want to do with your life? Like, are you serious about it? She attracts a lot of beginner actors, which is interesting. But her through line is, I mean, if you go to her house, there's cameras in the living. You have to like push things away. Like it's a set. It's a movie set in her house. Like she doesn't play around. Like this is her life. And I like being around passionate people like that.
Yeah. And it sounds like you found someone that is similar to you then. You found your kind.
Yeah. I told her that last night. It's funny because I called her and literally said those exact words.
Really?
You're very intuitive.
Thank you.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
I guess it's just a case of listening, that intuition. A case of listening and I'm learning and being open to that learning and discovering as we're going along. So where do you hope the acting? Do you have like hopes with the acting, or are you just doing it for fun? Because this lady seems to have questioned you, I would guess. What do you want from this? Are you serious about this?
Yeah, I don't know. I think about that a lot. I understand that in order to really see significant traction in an area, you need to be abandoned to it. You know, I mean, you know that as an actor, like it, where it's that comedy, whatever, you have to, with the same diligence that you do this podcast, you have to translate that into acting, right? I don't have the bandwidth right now to even consider doing more because of my business and the content and so forth. So I don't know the answer to that. Right now, I feel like this is feeding my soul and I really love it. And the opportunities when I do get on set, I'm so happy. But I also understand that if I need to see anything happen, I'm going to have to sacrifice something. And I'm weighing that right now.
Yeah, we talk a lot on this podcast about sacrifice. That if we want to do these creative things, then something else has to be sacrificed. And we often know what it is, but we just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But how much do you want it?
Right. Exactly.
You know, that's the question. What do you want more? Do you want, for me, it's sacrificing things like the money, the wealth, saying that, I could be doing a job right now, like working. I did a little stint in a bank when my kids were young, and I could go back to a job like that right now and get a nice car and go on holidays. But right now I'm saying that's my sacrifice. Right now I need to commit to my art, and maybe I'll have that later on. But right now I'm sacrificing that certain lifestyle.
Yeah.
That you get from
with this show. Is that what you want? Is this show to be it?
There's a vision, there's a plan of where we're going. I want to be creative, and I would like to see this. I'm careful about sharing that too much.
That's okay.
Because I found that sometimes when I overshare my ideas, others can sometimes disrupt it.
How? What do you mean by disrupt it?
It can be positive or negative. It can be their ideas coming in on top, or it can be some kind of friction that they might have, how they don't see that fitting. Someone personal or close to me might not necessarily see that fitting into their life. It doesn't kind of work for them.
I know 100% what you're talking about.
And then, if I talk about the vision 5 years from now, I'm not in the same box that I am now. So,
yep, I get it.
To break out of that, I'm protecting it. I'm protecting the vision.
I really like that approach because, what is it? John Maxwell, I think, talks about, for like an accountability perspective, put it out there because then your ass is to the fire. Mm-hmm. But I think that is, forgive me, John Maxwell, if I'm, misinterpreting it. But I feel like that's kind of more of a beginner stage tactic versus somebody who's more assured in their vision. because when you have a strong vision, what you're saying is protecting the energy of that vision, and your energy around it, I think, is so on point.
Especially when it's working. I think I might feel different, like you say, if in the beginning stages of this, I openly told people what my initial vision was, to get people on board, to get people to get people sitting down in the chair with me, to get people on Zoom with me. I had to speak what my vision was. I had to say what I'm doing to people. But if I start to look long term and where I hope for this and what I'm doing to grow to, that's when I think it changes. That's when I think the protection comes in.
Cool.
Definitely. So, so with you, you've got all these creative pursuits going on. You do this pretty much full time. You're really throwing yourself into it.
More than full time.
More than full time. You're living it. That's like I say, it resonates so much with me. We live this thing that we're doing. Would you say it's a creative life?
Yes.
Would you say there's any element of it that you don't enjoy?
In my life?
No, within this creative life, with this part of it, doing this.
So outside of my business,
creation. Yeah.
I think the only thing I don't like right now is the lack of space I'm giving myself to really think. I really need to think more and let something simmer. You know what I mean? I love brainstorming and writing and the non-pressure of needing to produce. And I think since everything is so tight in my schedule, I need to the cycle of idea to posting is so short that I need that to breathe a little bit more. So I don't like that. I don't like feeling like I'm not fully letting something breathe. And that's all on me to sacrifice something to allow that.
What does your process look like then with your content sharing? Because I know how intense that can be.
I'll show you. So I have a spreadsheet because I'm a nerd like that. And I told you I have spreadsheets.
I've got the same. I think.
You see that? Okay. So each of those lines is an idea. And each idea has a link to it or a reference. So when I'm at the gym, when I'm driving, listen to all those podcasts we listen to, I'll hear Billie Eilish say, "You don't need fancy studios, use what you have." And I'm like, I like that line. And so I'll just drop Billie Eilish, drop the link, and I'll drop what she said. Now, so I have all these ideas right here. And then my process is when something reminds me of something, then there's like a little embryo, right? There's an embryo there. So you have these two clashes, there's an embryo. And so that embryo needs some time. So usually I'll write a note that reminds me of when I heard this. And I have like these little embryos all in this spreadsheet. And then usually on Friday afternoons and then definitely on Sunday mornings, I sit down and I write down all the little embryos that I have. This is the weirdest analogy, but it's working.
No, I love it. It's great.
And I'm like, okay, which one's kind of more mature? And so I'll try to pick 3 or 4 of those ideas, and then I'll start scripting out some kind of concept idea. I try to record 3 to 4 a week. I'm not always there. I'll film it, and then the editing takes a long time. yeah, that's the process.
See, I quite enjoy editing. Do you get an enjoyment from that?
I really do.
I really enjoy watching your video. The editing is so engaging on your videos. It pulls you in.
Thank you. I've had a lot of people say, like, "I'll edit your videos. Why are you editing your videos?" I'm like, that's part of the storytelling is the edit. I think it makes me a better communicator. Makes me a better writer, because when I'm like, why the hell did you say it that way? You could have said it in 3 less words.
Mm-hmm.
It helps me that next Friday, right? So I do enjoy it. I need to have a snack. I need to have some coffee.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have the space to edit, I really enjoy it.
I find when I get into editing, I'll often do it at night time. But once I start, I'm in it.
Yeah. Oh,
And I don't,
yes.
and I'm absorbed by it. And the next thing I know, I started at 9 o'clock. It's 3 a.m. the next minute,
Yeah.
and
It's
I'm
time
just,
consuming.
it is. And but I like that. I find flow within that
Yeah,
creation as well.
I agree.
Yeah. So, do you find putting the stuff out there on social media, though, time consuming, and you find that you can lose yourself in time just putting stuff up to Instagram? Or do you have a routine and a schedule with that helps look after that?
You would be shocked how little time I spend on social media. I don't
Because
spend
that's
hardly any
one of the downsides I'm finding with this is I'm on
posting.
posting on social media is taking up far too much time.
Yeah. So that's such a great question.
Mm,
This is the system I'm using right now. Is I try to find a line in my caption that will work across platforms. I'll post it to Instagram first. I'll download it and I'll immediately repurpose it everywhere and just copy paste that same caption. Now, that's not the best way to do it because each platform needs its own thing. I don't have the
mhm.
bandwidth to do it any other way. And
That's the
Instagram is
same with me. Copy and paste,
copy paste,
maybe delete a few bits, but it still takes up so much time to go
especially
across.
when you're tagging people because they have
Mhm.
different handles on different platforms.
Yes, yeah,
Uh huh.
yeah, and the artwork. I feel like I need to perhaps get a bit better with that. The artwork and the thumbnails to draw,
You
because I
did
know
really
that.
good. Do you design those yourself?
Yeah, I design them myself, but I need to get better at you need to do different thumbnails for every single platform.
Do
And
you
that
have a template?
I do have a template,
Okay.
um, but I just still find it takes up too much time. It takes away from the research that I could be doing, the reaching out to guests, and the building that I want to be doing with this.
I know, man. I
You know,
know.
my one of my dreams that I'll openly say is that I would love to create all this content, but have a social media manager,
Yeah.
someone that looks after social media. I put that out there. I want a social media manager, someone that looks after the social media. I create it, but they look after it.
Like
And
posting it and optimizing it. Yeah.
they do all that side of it. That's the side of it that I don't enjoy. That
Well,
is,
I believe putting stuff out there, it comes back to you. So
mhm.
it'll happen.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel that that's on the way. Um, so have you got any advice for me if you look at my content? You said you're just looking at the thumbnails. Is there anything that jumps out to you that you're like, you need to change this up? Be honest.
No,
No,
I
like I can
think,
take it. I can take it.
Lord Jesus, that's a, um, hmm, um, damn.
You got to find me BTS. Which one are
No,
you
I'm
looking
here.
at?
I'm here. I'm here.
BTS Creative Academy. See, I'm put it on. I'm pretty sure you're similar. I'm on all platforms. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel like you can. Some people say to me, "Oh, I only do Instagram or I only do TikTok," but I feel like if you do that, you're missing out a huge chunk of your potential audience. Different demographics are on different platforms, and you need to. I feel like what I'm doing is kind of universal, and you can engage across the platforms.
I got something for you.
Go on.
Your hooks, it takes way too long to get to whatever you're trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
So this,
find your matchness back to who you are as a person.
Yeah.
when you don't have any captions on just yet, and so it takes 2 seconds for you to do this transition, and then it shows her that 2 seconds needs to be cut. It's fancy editing, but when you're scrolling, that first 2 or 3 seconds is so important that you immediately need to say what this video is about. So why did I bungee jump butt naked?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's gonna say that on your podcast. Maybe they will. But
I'm taking that bit out.
You get the thing immediately. I'm talking about, like, I tell people all the time, like, this thing, that breath at the beginning, cut it out. So I start all my videos with Billie Eilish. You know what I mean? There's not even there's none of that, because that 3 seconds is so freaking important. So I think it's a really quick, easy win for you, even with your, your podcasting clips or something. What is the most important thing that they said, and put that as the first 3 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I hated my mother until I learned this. Start there.
Brilliant. I love it. Because okay, so I have looked at the analytics, and on Instagram, that is the thing where I'm losing them within the 2 seconds.
Yep.
That they're not, they don't people don't hang around for it, do they?
Cut it short.
You need that hook, which you have a brilliant video about that, don't you? You've got one about the hook that pops to mind. You gotta reel them in. And I guess that's what I'm missing.
And deliver. You don't just reel them in, you deliver. So the payoff right after. So I forgave my mother by doing this. I'm just pulling something out of my butt. And then immediately into the payoff, I wrote 3 things that she did right. I mean, you immediately go into the solution. So a lot of times I know I did. I thought, okay, you hook somebody in, then you got to keep them engaged and then give them the payoff. It's better when you hook them in and then immediately give them the payoff, and then they stay on to learn more about why. So if I said, I did this to make an extra $1,000 a month, I sold Indiana Jones cups. I immediately told them the answer right after I gave them the hook. They're more likely to stay on to find out how I did that than if I said, I did this for $1,000 and then I go into some random ass story. And they're like, she's never going to tell us. This was just a hook,
Yeah. Yeah, and I've experienced that as well with social media posts where they're, what do they call it? Clickbait.
Yep, exactly.
Where the hook brought you in, but as soon as you realize that wasn't relevant, you're like, I'm out of here.
Yep,
exactly. I'm not returning to this. This isn't what I wanted.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's putting that audience, it's putting that audience perspective on it, isn't it? As well. It's considering yourself as the audience.
Right.
Consider yourself. How do you engage with social media? Right. What do you look for? What pulls you in?
Exactly.
And then taking that and transferring it to your media. We're getting there. Yeah. And so this is what you would do with someone with your business.
No.
You wouldn't do that?
No. We don't do social media stuff.
You don't do the social media. Oh, right. You don't do that at all.
No. We do launches of courses and memberships, digital products. So, there is conversation about, bringing in community into your ecosystem, but we're really focused more like mid funnel, bottom funnel versus top of funnel.
Right. Okay. And that's interesting. So you do you avoid it? Do you say like social media isn't kind of part of that process?
I don't avoid it. It's just another level of expertise. That's a different conversation. And if I wanted to expand this business and bring in an offer around that, we could. I don't think that's what I want to do just yet. Just not yet.
Yeah, it just doesn't. I'm getting the feeling like that wouldn't feel right.
We're so busy right now. like there's so much that like I don't think I can handle like bringing in the social media element. I think if I would either need to expand our team or switch gears and think more top of funnel, which I may eventually, because I'm so interested in community and storytelling and all of that. It's just not yet. It's not that season just yet. I mean, I see it in my mind. I see where we're going. I don't have words around it yet, but I can feel it.
Okay. Going back to the social media, changing it up a little bit here. Going back to the social media, where did that come in for you? Where did that start before the acting?
Yeah, I've been putting out content for, gosh, I don't know, 10 years.
Around that time of listening to that podcast yourself.
Yeah, I was blogging at the time. That was my main thing, was blogging. I wrote a lot, not very good at it, and then started podcasting 7 years ago.
And were these on similar subjects that you're just talking about now, or complete? Because you mentioned the NFTs.
Yeah, I mean, I've had different shows. I've co-hosted shows. I did a morning show one time with somebody. I did a mental health show. My shows have always been around kind of unconventional leadership because that's my heartbeat. But I've collaborated with a lot of different creators and gone on little side paths,
What kind of side paths have you gone on?
NFTs for newbies,
Yes.
Morning show, mental health podcast, stuff like that. I had 3 shows at one point that I was running all at the same time.
So it sounds like to me that you like to experiment.
Yes.
So you're experimenting.
Yes.
In the hope to discover what?
Does this work? So I had someone yesterday, we're coming up with a launch pad. This is 3:40, Heather. I start getting a little loopy.
That's okay.
I need a cup of coffee.
Is that afternoon coffee is needed?
A launch strategy. And she goes, I just need to know, we need to develop the perfect plan. And I said, do you understand that it's not linear, it's cyclical? So I believe with all my heart, anything you're executing and putting out in the world is a circle of idea, action. You get data back, and then you analyze it to make a more informed decision. And you're constantly doing this, and you're just testing things constantly. So these little side paths, it may seem like, okay, you're creatives do this a lot. Like, oh, you're all over the place. You're doing all this stuff. I'm like, okay, maybe, or maybe you're testing things and seeing what you can learn from it. Because just like the NFTs for Newbie show, there's no way I could have predicted that we would have hit 1 million downloads, that we would have had the opportunities that we had from that and made the money that we made from that. And like, it was crazy. And that was just from being open and curious. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you can't do that all the time because kids, business, life. But I try, if I have like an inkling, like, maybe, to like allow myself to play a little bit.
What part of that process would you say you're at the moment?
I'm coming back into the ideation stage. So I'm here again where I have the data and I'm looking at things and I'm reevaluating what I want, and I'm going to go back into action again in the fall. I've already decided that.
So as you go into action, what does that look like going forward?
Doing the very best you can to make an educated decision, and understanding that it's just going to give you data back and not to be attached to it. So you're not seeing like, oh, this needs to work. You're saying, I wonder what I'm going to learn from this. And it's going to hint towards something, which is easier said than done when you're, at a stage in your life where things need to work. But yeah, that's it.
Great. Okay. So one final question for you.
Sure.
And I'm going to take this from listening to your podcast. And on one that I was listening today, you said to your guests, and I've said this to some of my other guests as well, if we could jump in a time machine and go back to the beginning of all this, where you started doing this social media content creation, and you had one bit of advice for yourself back then, what would you say to yourself?
Stop being so nice.
Why?
Because it's been a defense mechanism for me. And this is just for me. I have grown up in Southern Christian Bible Belt. There's an area of the South they call the Bible Belt, where I've learned to be a really good Christian girl. And coupling that with being a helper, like I was a freaking therapist. I'm all in my feelings. I cry every day. Like I'm cared deeply about people. I'm very empathetic. That has really put me in a position to really be run over and allow myself to shrink and be small and say, go ahead. And I'm having to learn, and it's so uncomfortable for me right now, but at this season in my life, to admit what I want. And sometimes I feel selfish for that because I have 2 daughters, and like how much do I steal time from them to pursue what I want, you know? But I wish I wouldn't have been so nice.
Well, I'm just going to say I appreciate you being nice, in the sense that in this meeting here today, it was very nice of you.
I want to be a nice person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want to be
You've got it. You got it. You're saying you need to look after yourself.
Yeah.
And there's points where you need to put yourself first.
And own that I know what I'm talking about sometimes, and not have aggressive middle-aged men speak for me in rooms. Yeah.
So how do you look after yourself now?
Going to acting class, driving 3 hours on a Wednesday night when I'm tired and I should be at home working or doing something else, but listening to One Republic with the windows rolled down and not thinking about anything.
And just living in the moment.
Trying. Trying.
Well, I appreciate this, Heather. I really do. Thank you for.
You're great at this. I hope you continue to push into it.
Thank you for joining me.
Unique vibe.
Well, yeah, that's hugely appreciated, and I'll take that with something that I've learned to do is say thank you, rather than, in the past I'd have just batted that away and gone, no, shut up. Don't give me compliments. Whereas I'm like, no, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that means a lot coming from you. Thank you for the content that you create as well. The stuff that you're putting out into the world does mean something. It resonated with me. And I know that it's resonating with a lot of other people as well. So thank you.
Cool.
Thank you for that.
That's
awesome.
And
I'm sure we'll catch up again soon in the future.
Totally.
At some point. We're doing similar things. I really appreciate you, and thanks again. And if there was anyone watching or listening, I always like to add that I appreciate them for joining us.
Yeah.
This conversation, that's pretty special, isn't it? That have listened in or watched, because you can watch as well. Yeah. But just on this final note, if anyone does want to find you, where do they find you? If they've discovered you for the first time on here, where do they find out more about Heather Parody?
You can Google Heather Parody, look up Heather Parody on most social platforms, heatherparody.com. I'm not very creative with my name choices, so just Heather Parody.
Heather Parody, and we'll find you everywhere. Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is awesome.
Thanks again. Yes, it was.